Hey gang, I'm Cole Cheney, and this is episode 18 of the CBD Source podcast. Coming up on the show, we've got a former race car driver whose career-ending collision skyrocketed him to a career he would have never imagined in cannabis advocacy. Holy shitballs, this is a story you are not going to want to miss. Later in the show, we'll hear another CBD thought by our own resident CBD guru, Akash Patel. But without further ado, I want to jump right into this because this is an amazing story. I had a 2.5-hour conversation with this guy. He's the founder of the Global Cannabinoid Research Center, the American Cannabis Compassion Alliance, the Carousel Challenge, and he runs an insanely detailed cannabis blog, mikesmedicines.com. You can follow him on Instagram at Cannabis is my medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome for the first time and possibly first of many times to the show, medical cannabis activist Mike Robinson.
Gang, you're listening to the CBD Source podcast.
But so around 9/11, you were still in New York and you were doing this pro bono work for kids with what was the exact job?
I was not attorney rep for children with disabilities and special education. I used to represent kids that were in special ed disputes. So that's basically when the parent doesn't agree with the educational program being offered for a child in special education. When that occurs, what happens is it moves into a formal process called a due process, much like somebody who committed a crime and then gets to be, judged through a hearing. Due process is a lawsuit, it's court, or it's a criminal charge. It's an adjudication. So really what happens is when that would occur and the local advocate would be like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm sitting next to the parent. They contact me. I'd step in, all pro bonos. I mean, I appeared in over 300 cities over a decade, representing kids in special education in hearings, specializing in restraint, seclusion, and abuse. So I took the most ugliest of ugly cases.
Wow.
Yeah, and literally that started in 1996. Where this all started was in a brutal racing wreck in 1995. I was racing on tour, on a pro tour, got in a brutal wreck. It paralyzed me.
Oh, shit. What kind of racing?
Auto racing, circle track racing.
Okay.
It was a tour race. I raced on multiple different tours, from the Southwest Tour to the Pro 4 West Tour, NASCAR sanctioned tours. That wreck was brutal. People don't realize, look, I had severe epilepsy. My head went into the wall. I hit that wall, clocked at 181.2 miles per hour.
Holy shit.
Traumatic brain injury deluxe. I mean, my head was all stuffed up in the roll cage. You had to cut the top off the car, metaflight into the UCSF.
Oh my God.
22 hours.
Jaws of life.
Surgery. Went into a coma, lasted 37 days. Was in that hospital for 7 months. So a lot of people don't understand that Mike's going to ramble on because he hit his head really hard.
Do you still have the helmet? Is there remnants of the helmet from that injury?
There's zero. They had to take the helmet, and what they did while they were prepping me and all that, I don't know what they did. They drilled, they had to tap my brain and all that stuff. They put shut in.
Oh my God.
So I was blind in the right eye from that wreck. That vision came back 4 years ago.
What?
Using oil. Yeah.
What do you mean? It came back?
My statement of disability would blow your mind. My SSI statement of disability, I just got reviewed this year, and they're scratching their head like, do we admit that cannabis oil worked and he doesn't have all this, or just keep him disabled? Let's keep him disabled.
What? How did you get? You were blind in one eye for that many years, and it just came back 4 years ago. Tell me this story. How did that happen?
In 1997, when I got put on permanent disability after suing and this and that and everything else, took forever to get it. But when I got put on that, the max SSA or SSI income after the wreck, the statement of disability includes non-ambulatory, includes a severe refractory epilepsy, chronic Lyme disease, severe neuropathy, right eye blindness. The list goes down.
Yeah.
And literally, Social Security Administration had to look at that statement of disability. They didn't even update it. They looked at it this year and were like, okay, so you can walk, you don't have Lyme disease, you're not seizing every day, you're not seizing even once a month. Let's see, so you can see? And I was like, yeah, I guess we're going to have to go to an ophthalmologist. You're going to send me to neuroscientist. We're going to have to go to a lot of different places because all this stuff could come back.
Right.
So if you're going to exit me off of Social Security, we got to make sure that one, I go to vocational rehabilitation. So I'm really interested in UCSB. I started talking about stuff like that with them, and they're like, holy crap, it's going to cost us $1 million to take the But the biggest issue is, in order to remove me from Social Security, our government will have cannabis oils allow aeration to the point that somebody paralyzed from a severe head injury can get up and walk again. And somebody that was blind will be able to see again. Somebody with chronic Lyme with severe neuropathy from it be able to have a clear line. My Lyme study came in negative in March of 2014 because I used a ton of oils for the previous 4 or 5 months getting off of all the seizure meds.
Wow.
I had no clue whatsoever that cannabis oil killed Lyme disease.
That's great. That's an amazing claim. That's fucking crazy. They should test that immediately because so many people are going through just horrible lives because of Lyme disease. It's like, wow, if you could do a mega dose, give them your exact formula of what you did and then see what happens because, wow, they should be testing that. They should be double blind studying that. And
they should be, but prohibition stops all that.
Right. For real though, like that, there are so many studies in the works right now. They should throw that in there. Lyme disease with mega doses of what do you remember what you were taking for 4 months?
Well, they actually are, by the way. I mean, there is quite a bit of research.
Are they doing the Lyme disease one?
There's quite a bit of research on cannabis and cannabinoids and Lyme disease already now.
Right.
I was taking doses upwards of 1 gram a day, just like you'd have cancer or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time I was taking 3 benzos and turning them into a half dose of only one of them. And that is one heck of a withdrawal on its own. Then I had barbiturate seizure medications and all kinds of other newfangled seizure medications with all kinds of strange withdrawals that came with those. So literally I had to plow myself into bed. And I was using vape pens of CBD along with that to sort of offset how plowed I was from the heavy THC oils to get away from the medications. So it was a combination of THC and CBD that killed out Lyme disease. I'd been positive for Lyme's for literally 20 years before that and had gone through not one but 2 different in-home treatments where I had an IV pole going everywhere with me in my house for 45 days, a portacath installed into my chest. Yeah, so then the nurse comes over, clears the portacath, shoots in an antibiotic, puts the IV back on every day.
Wow.
So, I mean, I went through those kind of treatments for Lyme disease and they failed. But a bunch of cannabis oil killed it off to the point that if I go and ask for a Lyme to check it, I'll get a stern look from my doctor like there's no way insurance will cover it. I got told that last year. I was like, can you do a Western blot on me? They're like, one. Because there's no way insurance is going to come back and cover any more expensive tests when you've been negative for Lyme for the past 5 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's mind blowing. I worked closely with cannabinoid medicine expert, Dr. David Bierman, for a year, directing communications at the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine. And he used to joke with me all the time. He'd be like, Mike, you're like literally cornering the market on different illnesses that cannabinoid medicine treats.
No shit. You happen to stumble into all ones that could be fixed that we didn't know about. You're like you're like Wolverine, but like with weed, like that slow mutant healing factor. Like somehow you got all the ailments that cannabinoids actually could repair that we didn't know about. That's fucking amazing. And lucky for you. Lucky that you can walk and all these other things now and you have your sight back and Lyme disease. Wow. Insane. That's crazy.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Every day I'll wake up every day and wonder sometimes, is this a dream? Did I actually die and I'm just continually dreaming?
A lot of people wonder that.
The CBD Source Podcast. This is how we CBDo's it.
I came home from the hospital to find my son no longer speaking. So the biological son is 26 and severely autistic.
Oh, wow.
It was with my ex-wife, and I can't treat him. She's not open to that at all, or open to what I do at all. Nowadays, and although I was very, very instrumental in my son's life, up until, he got out of school, once he did, you've got a mom that's got custodianship and there's not a whole lot you can do. But that's sort of the backtrack, is that I was a race car driver. I was a mortgage banker, a race car driver, and getting this big wreck and, paralyzed from it, come home to find my own son autistic. I started a nonprofit, multiple nonprofits over the years for representing kids in special education nationwide. And that leads to traveling all over the country and representing kids, over the 2-decade period of time. I started Cannabis Oil. And what happened was in 2013, when I started using CBD by chance, which is a whole other story.
How did you start using? That's way before everyone really even knew about CBD. 2013.
You know what? You'll get a scoop-like interview. I had a Korean roommate. Okay, so I'm somebody who's dealt with seizing here now for 18 years when it comes to 2013, with a history of representing kids all over the nation. I seized everywhere you could think of. So, I seized all over the nation. It was a situation where, no matter where I went, I had seizures, so I just dealt with it. We came up with the term, E does not define me, meaning I have epilepsy, but it does not have me. So if I have a seizure, I'm getting back up. Unless I'm unconscious, you're not taking me to a hospital. I'm going to get up and wipe the dirt off,
Right.
And we have to have that brain set to overcome all this. So literally, after 2 decades of seizing all over the nation, representing kids in special education hearings and disputes, suddenly on September 8th of 2013, I found myself on the floor after seizing in a nocturnal seizure, which happens quite often to us.
Right.
And they get pretty radical, grand mal type. And I'd end up on the floor so often that I would set up a mattress next to my bed, not only set that up, but put a pillow and a blanket on it. So after I'd come to after falling out of my bed, I'd be comfortable, and I'd wake up on the floor all the time.
Wow.
But one day, yeah, it's incredible. One day on September 8th, 2013, I came out of that bed, and the way I twisted tore multiple ab muscles, and we're talking in your 6-pack.
Yeah.
So I refused medical treatment. A roommate called an ambulance. I wouldn't go. Later in the day, I did go to the hospital because I had all these bulges in my gut.
Yeah.
And they told me, look, you're not going to be able to eat much. You're going to need a liquid diet. I told them I used medicinal cannabis and I had my card. And back then I didn't know how to use medicinal cannabis right. So all I was doing was smoking it. And we know now ingestion is key, but I didn't know that then, And so I get home from the hospital and I go out to my little back patio and I break out the bong and I'm going to use my medicinal cannabis. It's going to help me with epilepsy. So I think. Right. All it's doing is making life a little easier. It's really not stopping seizures.
Right.
So I go and sit back and I take a big bong load and I'm holding my gut and I'm like, I can't cough. Every time I cough, this big bulge comes out of my 6-pack in not one area, but.
Oh, yeah. You're just ripping your abdomen up.
Yeah. It's horrible. And, I had this roommate and his name was Wu Feng Chang. Okay. Uh-huh. And nobody, I had a 4-bedroom house and rented out 3 of the bedrooms. And nobody could pronounce his name. So one day, a Marine veteran from the Afghanistan war who was running from me came to me and said, let's make up a name for Wu. And I was like, okay, we'll start calling him Henry. So he took on the name of Henry, and Henry was a acupuncturist, and he specialized in creating what he called ancient Chinese medicines. He was here on a green card from Korea, and when he saw that I couldn't eat it all, and heard that I couldn't eat it all, he told me, Mako-san, no can eat it all. And eat it all. He kept on saying, can eat it all at me. And I was like, okay, I know, Henry, I can't eat anything. And so suddenly he leaves, and it's in the evening. He comes back about 2 hours later, and he's got two prescription bottle kind of things, pretty tall ones, and he'd use them quite often, filled with these little, herbal balls like you see from, ancient Chinese medicine, how it just roll up a little ball. And sometimes he'd have them for anxiety, for gut issues. You name it. He had these little herbal balls. I never knew what they were. I don't know, some herbs, just like a little ball of resiny gummy stuff.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Okay.
It's like Chinese medicine stuff. So all I knew was can't eat it all, because he kept handing it to me and said, Michael-san, can you eat it all? He'd hand me the bottle. I'd hand it back. We go through this argument. So I start taking these things, like 4 or 5. I couldn't eat it all. So
Right.
I'm hungry. And at the time I weighed 100 pounds more than I do right now. I weighed over 300 pounds, and I'm a real hungry guy. So,
Right. Yeah. Wow.
So I'm taking 5, 7, 10 of these little herbal balls at a time, 5, 6 times a day, not thinking anything about it. So frustrated because I couldn't eat.
And you had no idea what you're eating. You just know that it's some kind of ancient medicine, right?
No idea whatsoever.
Right.
And at that time, all I knew was that, hey, I couldn't eat. I'm going to need surgery at some point here without a doubt. I'm in trouble.
Right.
If I have another seizure, I'm in serious, serious trouble. So normally I would just jump on the pharmaceuticals. At the time I was prescribed 48 different pills a day, 12 different medications to control epilepsy.
Jeez.
Severe refractory epilepsy knows no friend. It will not respond to any pharmaceutical medication. It's just like Dravet syndrome with severe intractable epilepsy with little kids that have severe types of seizures. It's no different.
Right.
Severe refractory, it just doesn't matter what drug they give you, it doesn't work. I went through a total of 27 different medications over that 18-19 period of time between 1995 and 2013, and none of them would stop the seizure.
They were like all different seizure medications that are supposed to supposedly help, but just none of them were working for you, I guess.
A lot of them made it worse. They caused rashes.
Side effects and everything.
One time I got down to 138 pounds, and I'm a big framed person, so I was all skeletal looking.
Jesus.
I mean, it just the side effects of seizure drugs are just horrid. And if they're not working, all you're doing is dealing with side effects. So I'm going through this nightmare with all these medications. And generally speaking, you tear some ab muscles, you're worried about seizing, you're definitely going to go to the benzodiazepines. At the time, I was prescribed 3, Klonopin, Ativan, and diazepam, 3 different benzos a day, and the full dose of each one.
Right.
So what happened was, about a week into this use of can't eat it all, because that's what I call these little round balls.
Can't eat it all.
Telling me I can't eat it all. I woke up one day and swung around on my bed and put my feet on the ground, noticing the mattress that I normally laid down to fall onto was leaning up against my bed. So I actually went to sleep the night before and didn't even put the mattress down. And I sat there and thought to myself, Mike, something you're eating, something in your diet is making your seizures worse. Because since you haven't been able to eat it all, you're not seizing. And I got frustrated with it. And I was like, so I go take 3 or 5 more of these little herbal things. And I look at the bottle, shake it. I'm so frustrated because I can't eat. I throw it in the garbage.
Oh.
Okay, so a couple hours goes by. Here I am thinking, hey, you haven't seized in the last week or so because you've been eating some maybe food coloring. Who knows? Something's making you seize worse.
Right.
Here comes Henry through the door. And he sees this bottle of his Chinese herbs in the garbage, and he pulls it out. Michael-san, can you eat it all? And he's going on and on in Korean. I can't understand him. So I come up and I bring him a piece of paper and a pen. I'm like, Henry, write this down so I know what you're talking about. And he writes CANNA. And I'm telling you, my eyeballs just went boom to that paper as I watched cannabidiol written down. At the time, I had no idea what cannabidiol even was. So I went to one of my computers where I did legal research, popped that in, and up pops a picture of Charlotte and an interview with Paige Fee. And I'm like, okay, now I know who Charlotte is, and I know about some different strange oil she's using, but what does that have to do to this?
Right.
So I go to Henry and I ask him, are you meaning cannabidiol? I'm like, oh, so, yeah, yes. So what's in the bowl? Cannabidol. So that's in the ball. The ball is cannabidiol. So literally that night I'm on the phone, and I'm the kind of guy that wears both a collar and a tank top. Or I'm sorry, a collar and a tie-dye. Depending on the day, you never really know what you're going to see me in.
Right.
I don't really believe in the word stoner because I'm an active, productive person. People can smoke cannabis and be very productive people, especially if they use CBD to mitigate the effects.
Yeah. How old are you, by the way? Just so
I'm 53 years old.
You're 53. Okay.
53 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what a revelation, though. As Henry's sitting on my shoulder talking about how he makes his Chinese herbs, and I can't really understand him, I'm reading through all these different websites that are referring back to a few kids who had done extremely well with CBD. And, I use 2 cell phones, so I got both cell phones going. I'm on one phone. I'm texting people on another, calling every last, quote, stoner friend of mine, asking them if they've got anything like, when I researched ACDC or Charlotte's Web, and I'm thinking, I need to expand out into some of these strains that have CBD in them.
Yeah,
and
real.
And so then I got some that was like, okay, what are you going to do with this stuff? You can't smoke it. I don't know how to make anything with it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just an incredible experience to have all of this happen based on a misunderstanding about what somebody's telling me. A guy from Korea that knows ancient Chinese medicine.
It's amazing.
It was just incredible. And so it just takes off from there. Within 3 weeks, Henry had to return to Korea. And I had to say goodbye to the man literally responsible for where I am today.
Yeah, wow. That serendipitous moment that him just being there for that little window of time kind of changed the trajectory of the rest of your life. And so many people that you've helped that wouldn't have been helped. That's pretty damn amazing.
Yeah, what happened was, I always was a pro bono person, a pro bono civil rights lobbyist, pro bono non-attorney rep, working all over the nation representing kids with disabilities. I had no idea when I went online and started talking it up about how cannabis and CBD is working great for me. I couldn't smoke all the bud I had at the time, so I just started eating it. Little did I know, I'm ingesting terpenes, THCA, CBDA. I'm ingesting cannabinoids. And with what I know now as a researcher, I know exactly what I was doing.
Right.
But
were you decarboxylating it first, or were you just eating it like raw? Okay.
Raw.
Right.
I mean, the acidic element chain on cannabinoids is very important. I mean, there's quite a bit of efficacy that comes from THCA,
mm-hmm.
CBDA, CBNA. So I mean, these different cannabinoids that still have an acidic chain quite often will do a lot what the cannabinoid would do without it. If it was decarboxylated, mm-hmm. It just takes a little more time because our body does decarb things like that to a certain extent.
Okay.
Nothing like in a lab or what you could do on a stovetop.
Right.
But it definitely does decarb it. So at the time, it was a bunch of CBD and ingestion of the raw plant. I mean, I couldn't eat, so I could eat tofu. So I started making some interesting things. On Super Bowl Sunday, I had weed foo. I just took all the weed, ground it up, made fried tofu, pressed it into the weed, pressed the weed into the tofu, and I sat there on Super Bowl Sunday and had my weed foo.
Oh, that's funny.
And I was sitting there with CBD dropping it in, and I went so public, it backfired.
Oh, no.
But that backfire was beautiful because it created compassion.
How did it backfire?
Well, as a non-attorney rep for a bunch of kids in situations and in special education, which I had to actually file lawsuits against their school districts, I'm out on Facebook on a public account typing about how I'm eating a Schedule I substance and how it's controlling my... So what do defense attorneys do when they get a hold of that? Immediate motion to dismiss. I probably got a half dozen motion to dismisses in a 1 week period of time on open cases. Every single one was granted. I was kicked off of cases.
Oh, that sucks.
Because I was under the influence of a Schedule I substance. So, how do I argue that? I can't. And
to the judge, it might as well have been heroin,
Well, an administrative law judge doesn't like a non-attorney anyway. We're able to step into any state and handle a case in administrative law court without a law license. We don't even need a law degree. So we can go in and argue a case against an attorney, and if we want to, we can really make those fees pile up on that attorney. We can waste their time if we feel like it.
How did you get your legal education to be able to fight these actual lawyers?
Well, I got in a racing wreck in 1995 and came home after quite a period of time rehabilitating to find my son severely autistic. I didn't have a choice but to educate myself. Now, I had some education prior in law, and after the fact, did a stint with Schiller International University in the field of international relations and diplomacy. So, I figured that instead of going to law school, I should go to school to learn how to stop two warring nations. Because when you got a parent that's really upset with their school district, and you got a school district with attorneys fighting back, you're literally stepping into a war that's much worse than a divorce. People get brutal.
Jeez.
So I figured, if I learn how to diffuse a nuclear attack, I probably can stop some of these fights that are going on between parents and the school districts.
That's great.
So anyway, I had no choice in late 2013 to literally close up shop, so to say.
Yeah.
Other than kids that were using cannabis oils and going to school, I pretty much backed away because it didn't make sense to try to help a parent and then get kicked off their case. We'd have to go hire an attorney.
It's also if you decided to stop taking the CBD and stop doing this, then you're back to seizures again. So it's either it's either take the seizures or keep the job.
And a job that pays in satisfaction, not in funds.
Right.
So I'm not saying I would take money over kids ever. I'm just saying that at some point you have to stop and say, hey, look, me being in this position is actually going to hurt this child. So I'm going to take their case, file a claim, file a lawsuit, and then get pushed off all of it. And the parents will likely have to spend money for an attorney to step in. So it's not doing much justice. And I was so conflicted over this towards the end of 2013. I started sharing it with some people who were bringing by different types of oils for me to try. And I connected with a compassion provider, and he came up with an idea and said, hey, look, why don't we just start giving away oil to all your past clients? Why don't we just start a compassion program? And literally, as I'm weaning off of a bunch of seizure medications that did not work, quitting a different prescription by the week, literally, using full extract cannabis oil, really high in THC, along with CBD, getting me through the withdrawals of this stuff, we create a compassion program. And that's the very compassion program that 3 years later would bring me to the front door of Genevieve's home, who is now my daughter. 3 years after that. So it just created a whirlwind of giving. I was so used to giving my time anyway. It was like, where do we give it now? So when I connected up with this guy who was a pretty rogue extractor from Northern California, I went up and we met and ended up staying a week or so with him. And it was just an incredible experience to start off with. He brought me to San Francisco to meet with Dennis Perrone, the author of Prop 215. So literally within a few months of even starting this journey, I was already meeting with the guys that wrote the very first legalization law here in California back in 1996.
Oh, wow.
And everything was about compassion. So immediately I was thrown into this world of giving, and it gave me quite a bit because it literally gave me the capability to use a lot of oils and go from 48 pills a day for epilepsy to 4 within about 4 or 5 month period of time.
Wow, that's so good. That's cool.
And during that period of time, I had absolutely no idea that all the CBD I was ingesting and other cannabinoids I was ingesting would kill Lyme disease. I had chronic Lyme since the early 90s. So about 6 months after this whole, can't eat it all experience happens, I go into a physical with my old doctor. He's like 68 years old. And I'm in a situation. I've lost my epileptologist and my neurologist. Both of them sent me letters saying we can no longer be your doctor.
What the fuck? I
refused to pick up medications. It got to the point to where I got in such an argument with a neurologist that called Adult Protective Services on me. And I could not believe it. There's a knock at my door. I go and answer it, and it's 2 gals. One's got a badge. And I'm like, I'm sort of used to you guys. And the line of work that I used to do as a non-attorney rep for kids with disabilities, sometimes you were necessary to show up when parents really were screwing up bad, and this kind of stuff happens. I don't ever like to judge anybody, but sometimes kids need intervention. But I was like, why would you possibly be at my door?
Right.
And they're like, well, Adult Protective Services looks over disabled adults and adults in need and blah, 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 blah. Can we please come in and review your medications, your this and your that? And I was like, you come on in,
Yeah, what the fuck?
I brought them in there and literally explained to them, look, I'm dealing with a doctor, a neurologist, that is demanding that I go to a pharmacy, take money out of my pocket, and pay for prescriptions that have never worked. They've only given me side effects. Right. Under his care, in VEGs, where we go inpatient, in the epilepsy monitoring unit, I would have up to 70 seizures a day.
Jesus.
Recorded. And here I am when they're at my door, and I'm like 3-4 weeks into all this stuff. And, at least, and I'm like, look, it's been a month since I've had a seizure. I've got pill bottles turned upside down. These are the pills I do not use or need anymore. And I'm not going to take them. I'm not going to pay for them. I'm not going to make my insurance company buy them, because in all reality, that would be fraud to go out and force somebody to go get medication that the insurance company has to pay for when they don't even need it. And
yeah, why stockpile stuff that doesn't work for you? It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. So you know what they do? They go through my house and they look at the laundry, it's clean. Look at the kitchen, it's clean. There's food in the fridge, and they were so embarrassed. And these 2 gals left, they shook my hand, apologized for coming. And, it was one heck of an experience. So
right.
The amount of backlash that came at me, and it did not matter how much I focused on CBD. And it's something I do quite often when I talk about cannabinoid medicine and cannabis, is the intro is CBD, because it's a very smooth and subtle way to talk about cannabis. It gets people to open their minds and say, okay, well, there's that works. There's an element of the cannabis or hemp plant that does this to me. So, because we've got some people that just don't respond to CBD only and need a little bit more. They need maybe some THC or terpenes or you name it, But CBD is the best door opener to introduce people that would never, ever consider cannabis.
Who are you? Wu Feng Chang, a mystical being, an ethereal deity, a healer, a Henry, operating between dimensional planes, manifesting tiny herbal balls of can't eat it oil. Can't eat it all. Who are you? Henry the Great? A man outside of time? A ghost of future events? Incarnating in the physical realm? Wearing the mid-clothes of a Korean acupuncturist? To gift a compass of compassion and a passion for grass, man. Hempry Henry, you happy humanitarian, you are a ripple in the pond, a lifesaver, and a kimchi craver. While we eat weed food, can't eat it all. All eat it, can't you? Explore your deepest thoughts, CBD thoughts.
So when you look at the science of THC and CBD, okay, anybody smoking is of course going to lower their blood oxygen level because you're holding smoke in your lungs instead of air. So that's a negative. Beyond that, smoking cannabis in general, other than some very one-sided National Institute of Drug Abuse studies, there's not really concrete evidence so much harm as some people think. And when we take a look at THC and CBD itself, somebody that smokes cannabis and gets high from cannabis and uses CBD with that, what's going to happen is the two cannabinoids compete. So when you take THC and take CBD with it, THC suddenly moves through its metabolic stages really quickly. Its first metabolite is called 11-hydroxy-THC. That's where you're really high. So when you take a hit, it hits your lungs, you get a head rush. That's 11-hydroxy doing that to your head. It's not THC. It's a metabolite. Immediately it happens. When you ingest cannabis with THC, it takes a while. First passes through the liver, goes through vital organs. By the time it hits your brain, it's subtle. It's a whole different feeling. That's why there's a different feeling between ingesting and smoking and two different functions. There's efficacy.
Sorry, when you say ingest, you're talking about like an RSO or like putting it in an edible type form or a capsule?
Yeah, I define ingestion as how it sounds. Goes into a capsule, an edible, and the majority of what's taken goes down the esophagus into the gut.
Okay, so yeah, right. Your gut's processing it first, that kind of thing.
Gut processing it. Now, there's way two different things between your gut processing it and you holding it in the oral cavity. Because when you hold it in the sublingual cavity under your tongue or anywhere orally, like let's say you have a cannabis candy, a CBD or whatever it may be, and you're sucking on it. Okay, if it's got terpenes in it, those terpenes are going to absorb in your mouth. They're going to become active. They're going to happen right away, and they're also going to first pass through your liver. It's not going to go through gut. So it's pretty interesting how that works because a lot of people aren't aware that terpenes in themselves are very, very volatile, and very few of them actually do what we want them to do when we ingest, but they do a lot when we take them orally. So there's only a difference between oral consumption and ingestion.
So really no point to having terpenes in a capsule because you're not getting it the same way, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I wouldn't say there's no point. What I would say is there's currently a huge scientific argument going on in the professional world of research on cannabinoid medicine. I mean, whether or not terpenes will be just destroyed by our gastric juices in our gut. once they hit it, because we're talking about an oven that we have in our gut going on with acids, and some of these terpenes will pretty much be lost in the process of ingestion. But in my belief, some will not be, and we will gain some therapeutic effect by ingestion of something with terpenes. Most of the stuff I see that's CBD and terpenes, it's oral. It's not ingestion. It's under the tongue.
Right, sublingually taking it.
When you think about it, even a sublingual type of drop, when it hits the tongue, where's it going? It's hitting the same veins that are underneath your tongue. You're not really swallowing something that drops in your tongue and soaks right in.
Right.
You know? So oral really would be an edible that's made into a food item, or something that gets completely swallowed.
Mm-hmm.
Where our ingestion would be completely swallowed, such as that, or oral would be something that soaks in the mouth.
I've never gotten as high smoking as I have with like a very strong cookie. You know what I mean? Like eating, I've gotten way more high on edibles than I have smoking a THC product. So,
and the biggest reason for that is the gauging of what you're taking. When you're smoking cannabis, the period of 11-hydroxy, that very high metabolite, is very short. It's about an hour and a half long. Mm-hmm. That's why when we smoke a joint, we're high for about an hour or two, and then it moves to what's called 11-carboxy, the next metabolite. That isn't so much of a high, and that's sort of the come down a little bit feeling, where you smoked, but you're just not stoned or super high anymore. So but when you ingest, 11-hydroxy will stay active for 4 to 6 hours.
Right.
So there's two things that go on. One is that the metabolite that keeps you more elevated lasts longer when you ingest. The other thing is when you're inhaling, whether it be a vape pen or a joint, you gauge it much better, because as you're hitting that joint, you feel the head rushes and go, okay, I'm done. But with the edible, you're eating the whole thing.
Right.
It's ingesting, then you're getting a feeling. It's too late to say you're done.
Right.
That's why I always tell people, go low, go slow, take the milligrams as you can.
Gang's all here. The CBD Gang. Give the show a call at 1-833-223-4264. That's 1-833-CBD-GANG. We're back with the CBD Source Podcast.
CBD makes oxycodone and other drugs metabolize quicker. One of the biggest problems we have with chemotherapy is it stays in somebody's system so long, it's killing all kinds of blood cells that don't need to be killed instead of cancer cells.
Right.
And a lot of time, let's face it, chemo is responsible for death. I don't care what anybody has to say back about that. It's a fact.
Yeah.
So if we're able to exit chemo drugs out of people quicker, at least we can find a way to support people that are using chemotherapy, not just with THC.
When you had your cancers, did you go through chemo and all that too?
Well, in 2003, I was initially diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had chemo, radiation, and surgery. I couldn't leave the hospital because I was seizing so much. So I was in the hospital for 6 weeks of chemotherapy and radiation at the same time. I was not warned about what's called chemo-induced hypermalacia. And what that is somebody who has had a head injury in the past or a stroke in the past. It can actually come back and cause it to recur. So after 6 weeks of chemotherapy, I found myself in 2003 being lowered back into a wheelchair to spend 3 more years in a wheelchair when it only took 2 years to get out of it after the wreck in 1995. So having chemotherapy equated me to being paralyzed again on my right side, equated me to being completely rendered unable to live a normal life. The cancer was gone, and it's the same cancer that killed my mom. So I mean, and my grandfather, on my biological side. So I mean, we're talking about something that could that I was predispositioned to get. So, a lot of people don't think when they're getting chemo radiation to read through those forms that you sign at the bottom because they're so nervous. But in those forms, one of the warnings you get is about secondary cancers. And who's worried about a secondary cancer when they're afraid for their life right now? Nobody. Well, I'm here to tell people it's real. So I beat non-Hodgkin's in 2003, but in 2015 it came back. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at stage 4, Hodgkin's lymphocytic at stage 4, and an extra added bonus was prostate cancer. 3 cancers at one time.
Jeez.
Boom. So at the time, I'd been using oils to get off medication. Once I weaned off the medication treating the severe epilepsy, I started using concentrates, vapor concentrates, and inhalation. I didn't ingest a whole lot other than CBD. I use CBD mostly for the oral, application. And then I would vape THC concentrates, and that kept seizures in control for me. Everybody responds differently. Everybody needs their own protocol.
Right.
But in May of 2015, I found myself with cancer again, and not just with cancer, but with a diagnosis of metastasis to the bone, my collarbone, and a big old chunk out of it. So cancer's moving quickly. It's getting up near my throat. I was scared. I admit it.
Yeah, no kidding.
And what were my options? Well, I could have gone to the cancer treatment center and eventually did, but not before I started cannabis oils. Literally within 3 weeks of the diagnosis of the recurrences of cancer, I started using cannabis oils, and I had a good enough tolerance to get at least 1 ml a day in me. And I'm really glad we're talking about this because I really want to break a myth. We see a lot of memes saying 60 ml in 60 days kills all cancer. Well, I'm here to tell everybody that's a bunch of BS. It's not true. It's a great way to sell oil. It's a great way to promote it. It's excellent to get information out there and say, hey, you can beat cancer with cannabis oil. But to tell people to buy this amount and use it in this period of time, and it'll beat all cancers, is mythical at best. It's nowhere near factual.
Right.
For me, I use cannabis oils from 2013 all the way up until January or February of this year, because a month after I quit opioids, I was declared in remission, full remission, not just partial, but complete, full remission from all 3 cancers. And, and I still, to this day, part of what I ingest right now isn't just replacing the opioids I once took. It's also used for maintenance of cancer. Anybody that's used oils for cancer is going to have to continually use a maintenance dose. And they should be using CBD as well. A lot of them are thinking, just THC. Everybody's talking about RSO. It's literally a guy's name, Rick Simpson, with O after it.
Right.
For oil.
Yeah.
It's truly full extract cannabis oil is what that truly is. So,
is that what you're taking right now?
No, I take it. What I use is pressed rosin. Like through the rosin press. So we're talking 0 solvents. I've had issues with RSO before. It's very difficult to get all the ethanol or alcohol out of that type of oil. And if you take it like I did for a period of years, what happened to me was a positive blood test at 0.02 blood alcohol level. And I don't drink at all. I don't drink it. Probably 5 years ago, I had 1 drink. So here I am. I had to go over and take a urine test because my doctor was like, look, you're going to have to do this just because, you're on Medicare and this and that. We need to make sure you're not drinking, with the one medication you still take. Right. And so I went and did that. That was positive.
Weird.
Too. So here I have positive for alcohol in my blood and urine, and I'm using, quote, RSO.
Right.
So I quit. I started infusion. So what I do is take cannabis, nature, and infuse it into MCT coconut oil, which is nature. Get coconut real hot, put the cannabis into it, let that stuff cook at about 200 degrees, let it go for 6 hours, strain it like butter. Now you have a very edible cannabis oil that you can make with any strain you want. And it's not going to be 80% THC. It's going to be 8 or 10% THC. So it's nice and subtle. It can be taken by grandma. It can be taken by a 30-year-old kid and be just fine. Somebody with cancer could take 5 mLs at once. Now they've got the equivalent of 1 ml of 80%. So if you see it, what I look at is the whole health aspect. And for myself, in order to really handle the pain that I have, I'll take pressed rosin, literally buds, put it into the heat press, and the goop comes out. There's no solvents involved at all.
Right.
So I'll take that pressed rosin and I'll infuse it into that type of oil that I've already made.
The MCT
and just eat it, or I'll take it and I'll make what I call honey lozenges, and I don't use high fructose corn syrup, what have you, but I'll make my own homemade candy using honey.
That's awesome.
And I'll infuse the rosin right into it, so, and that's something I'm talking about oral. If I like, for example, Genevieve's mom gets one of those and starts crunching, I'll be like, don't crunch on that like candy. You got to keep it in your mouth and suck on it because it's loaded with terpenes. Right. Rosins are just, and the beautiful thing about rosin is you can take a nice gooey CBD bud and squish it just like you would a THC bud.
Yeah, I've seen that done.
And you're going to get a lot of the same benefits. I can barely tell the difference when I've got a THC bud pressed versus the CBD bud. And the reason why is rosin is a lot about terpenes. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of course, the cannabinoids in there, but people don't realize that one terpene, for example, beta-carotene, I mean, this has been called a dietary terpene for over a decade. I'm sorry, a dietary cannabinoid. So BCP, or beta-carotene, one of our top terpenes in the cannabis plant, has been identified over and over and over again as an agonist to the CB2 receptor. So it literally acts like THC and CBN. So there's cannabinoids that we're realizing are not just cannabinoids. They're also terpenes.
Wow.
And I mean, so there's a lot of science that's yet to be done, and new things are uncovered by the day. So I can only take what I heard today with a grain or two of salt, and wait and see how it plays out. Because as the scientific community continues to research, things are sort of changing by the day, and more information is coming out.
Right.
But what we're finding is, such as with beta-carotene, there's been a lot of research done a decade ago that people just aren't paying attention to, and it's amazing to look at the structure of the CB2 receptor, the cannabinoid receptor, and how beta-carotene comes in and attaches to it just like THC or CBN would, and activates it, and that's just an incredible thing. And that's why I think that with CBD, we're still so much in our infancy. Yeah. We really don't know everything. Right. And of course, we're going to hear negatives, but we know the positives. I mean, I can't count the number of people that I work with that use CBD for everything to help them sleep, for anxiety. I just wrote an article recently on how new science has done much more than suggest, but prove that public speakers are able to be much more fluent after a single dose of CBD used an hour before they go up on stage. Now, talk about a huge breakthrough, because the cannabis industry and CBD industry, hemp industry, all have so many expos and so many gatherings. It's just incredible.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I literally get asked to speak every day somewhere, and for me, I'm sort of a ham and talk a lot, but for other people, I see how nervous they get before they walk out and greet the crowd, and something like that, CBD for social anxiety. It applies to somebody that just doesn't want to go to the store and see all the people there. It applies to so many different things. So if you know what's going to help a speaker go out and be more affluent, you know what's going to help a nonverbal person possibly speak. Right. There's just, or theoretically, you could think that way. It seems like a never-ending story when it comes to what cannabinoids can do. And then it's a little bit of a debate about which one will do what. And the bottom line of it is a patient is always going to be able to be the one that tells you their best protocol. Now, they might not be able to do that on day one, but you give a patient 6 months of using different cannabinoid medicines, they're going to come back and tell you, hey, CBD works really good for me at 10 milligrams in the morning or 100 milligrams in the morning. If I smoke one or I vape some THC in the afternoon, it works great too. So you're going to get these kind of accountings that are always a little bit different than another.
Right. And everyone's got a different endocannabinoid system, so it just affects you differently depending on so many different factors you don't even know about. I want to ask you some questions because my personal life is going weird right now, and I think you have a lot that I can learn from you as far as what you've gone through. Just with my own relationship, my girlfriend, just before I started this podcast, not this episode, but started making this podcast in general, she had a massive stroke out of nowhere, and we got her to the hospital. I talked about this in episode 10 when I was talking to Dr. Bonnie Goldstein. And then after after she was in the hospital for a few days and they're trying to figure out what caused the stroke. And then they found out that she had a late stage cancer, like a cervical cancer on top of the stroke. So, and she also had pulmonary, embolisms and her blood clots in her lungs. So they put her on blood thinners and all this stuff. She was in a hospital they couldn't even start her on chemo until they got the stroke stuff handled because just the initial tests they did to figure out how she got the stroke damaged her kidneys and stuff, and then she had to go on dialysis, and she almost died there for a couple of days. But so then after she got healthy enough her kidneys were functioning again, and she was able to not be in that weird septic state, they started her on chemo, and she's recovering from a stroke and starting this chemo. They put her in a nursing home for a month after that. And then finally she got to come home. And so she's been home for I don't know how long it's been, several weeks now. And I am deathly afraid to try to put her on any kind of CBD because she's on blood thinners. She's on all these things that I know you don't want to mess with. You know what I mean? Any kind of CBD going into that and them taking over when she's on these things that are trying to stop the other, that would block, blood thinners or things like that might cause other strokes or whatever. But while she's going through chemo, I know there's so many positives to taking, THC and CBD on top of, to, like you're saying, with the chemo to try to knock that down. But I'm just so nervous about it. And I don't even know who to talk to about it because her mom is there every day, during the day while I'm working. And her mom is very much, we're in New York where, this stuff is illegal. The CBD isn't, but, THC side is illegal. And she doesn't want to my girlfriend doesn't even want to bring this up to her doctor and stuff even suggest that this could be an option to her mom because her mom is just very, when something's illegal, it's not good, blah, blah, blah. That's probably the same way your ex-wife might be with your own son. So it's I don't even know who to ask about this as far as I've got all this CBD. I don't want to give it to her because I don't want to screw up the blood thinners. And then a couple weeks ago, I didn't mention this on the show yet, but the chemo made her, she had long lustrous hair. The chemo made her lose her hair. I shaved it down to but she went to go get a wig, and while she was getting wig fitted, right after they were driving home, and she had a seizure, which she'd never had a seizure, and it was a grand mal seizure.
Oh wow!
And it was this was around noon, so they called me. I went to the hospital, a different hospital because they weren't near our town, and she was when I got there, they said she had the seizure, came out of it, and then when they got to the hospital, she had another seizure in the ER. And I stayed with her overnight there. This was like during the first Democratic debates, so that's where that kind of places it on the timeline. And then she didn't remember that day at all, like completely blanked out what had happened that day from the point where she had the first seizure. And her mom reacted really quickly because her brother has epilepsy and has had seizures his whole life. And he's actually going to have surgery for it, brain surgery pretty soon. And I've talked to him so many times about CBD, and it's just like they're not listening about about how CBD could probably do something for him, because none of it, he keeps switching medications like you did, and nothing's working. Nothing's keeping it off for that long. And he just basically lost his ability to drive. They took away his license because he had a seizure while he was in the parking lot or something like that. So now he's like going to the last resort of having to have a brain surgery. So it's a lot of crazy stuff is going on.
Sad to hear that.
But I'm just wondering about, like, with my own girlfriend, she's 40, and now that she's in this like extreme chemo, and the chemo is supposed to end in like late September, and I don't even think they're doing like any kind of testing until the thing's over to see if it's working. So she's going through all of this stuff, like stroke, cancer, pulmonary embolism, and now seizures. So she's on a ton of medicine now, like the same way you were, you know? So
when we look at the scenario, your gut feeling means quite a bit, always. Mm-hmm. And so many people don't operate from their gut feeling when they get that, and you always should. Now, I don't want to talk bad about doctors, especially as the former director of communications for the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine, where the quote experts in cannabis and cannabinoid medicine are certified as specialists. Mm-hmm. I really don't want to talk poorly about doctors, and I won't, but I will say they don't operate from their gut. They operate from a chart. They operate from what they learned at the last seminar. And, some doctors, of course, I'm sure use their gut feelings, but for the most part, it's not done. But your gut feeling was 100% correct. When you have somebody who has had a pulmonary embolism, who has had a stroke, who has had all of these different issues occur, and they're taking a blood thinner, what can happen when you add CBD to it? And it's not a can, what does happen in studies.
What does happen, yeah.
Okay, is it makes the blood even thinner. So now you've got somebody who's already clotted up, and you're giving them something that makes their blood even thinner. And what can happen there is a bleed. And that's the very worst thing you want, is to actually possibly end up with an aneurysm because you've got a pharmaceutical drug that really doesn't know what to do when a natural substance comes in there with it. And that's what it boils down to. It's not the CBD doing this stuff. It's the pharma drugs.
Right.
They're very volatile. And if you were to give somebody with all these different problems CBD, you run the risk of them having a brain bleed, of literally. And this is where the online advice that I see given on Facebook especially is dangerous. I see a lot of people giving advice when somebody says, hey, my girlfriend just had a couple seizures in a parking lot and I don't know what to do. And immediately you've got people saying, hey, try this, try that. This product's great. That product's great. Use this many milligrams. And they haven't gotten the backstory. The backstory that you gave me really quickly gave me enough information to say, whoa, put the brakes on cannabinoid medicine right now.
Right.
Because we've got to get her stable.
Yeah.
We've got to be sure that things aren't going to cause a problem. Now, as I say all that, what I'll also state is that certain dosages don't do this. Mm-hmm. When we see very small doses, say under 10 milligrams at a time, mm-hmm. the efficacy is there. A 5 milligram dose of CBD does something, even though you don't feel it and may not see it right away in a patient. So for somebody like her, we're talking a couple drops could literally change everything because the cannabinoid in itself has neuroregenerative properties. Mm-hmm. So when you go on beyond CBD and look at a tad bit of THC, I've talked about how CBD mitigates the effects of THC. Well, THC does the same thing as CBD. Mm-hmm. So that's why the 1-to-1 is a really good thing to use. So somebody like her could have a very, very small dose of a 1-to-1, and I'm talking 5 milligrams. Mm-hmm. I'm talking a dot of black oil if it was a full extract, or just a couple of drops out of a tincture bottle. That could do some very incredible things without interrupting the metabolism of the medication. So the biggest problem when it comes to metabolizing pharmaceuticals that are very, very necessary, as in her case, mm-hmm. and using CBD, is the doses are too high. You got GW Pharma out there recommending up to 20 milligrams per kilogram. That would mean I take 250 milligram doses, or like 2,000 milligram dose. Yeah, it'd be 2,000 milligrams for me a day. That's ridiculous. It's nuts. Mm-hmm. So there's so much debate over what kind of dose to take without looking at each individual person, what they can tolerate, and when you say what they can tolerate, why do you come to that conclusion? So with your girlfriend, it's an easy one. We come to the conclusion because it'll compete against drugs that she needs right now in order to stay alive. Right. And I'm telling you, this is the number one reason why I will step up to the plate and stop somebody if I've got the time when I see patient shaming over pharmaceuticals on social media. It's wrong. Uh-huh. To sit and attack somebody over the medication they're taking and push CBD or push THC. I see this all the time. And it's like, look, let the person make up their own mind. You don't know jack diddly about their history. Right. And I'm glad people are excited. Don't get me wrong. But when we see advice given, we got to be really careful about it because somebody's giving advice based on this little tidbit. Yeah, if you don't know someone's whole medical record or what they're taking and what they're taking it for, then that's why it's nerve-wracking to me because I know she should. Especially when I'm reading about like how horrible chemo is for you, and you're telling me too that it's such a poison and it does kill all these extra cells that are not supposed to be dying. That and it's so hard to recover from, and it kills people and especially when you mention stroke and reoccurring cancers, it's like, oh God, this is going to be a fucking forever nightmare. Exactly. The chemo itself right now is way more destructive than CBD ever could be. Right. I mean, you're talking the chemo itself is going to completely annihilate how some of these other drugs work. It's going to make them work completely different or not at all. And it's going to change everything. Now, I got to be careful nowadays because we've got so many doctors that have jumped into the world of CBD and are suddenly, quote, experts, but and sometimes they don't take too kindly to people giving, quote, medical advice. Yeah. Well, I'm a patient and your girlfriend's a patient. Patients can talk to each other. That's not medical advice. So if it was me, and that's a good way to get around that whole problem, it was me, and I was in the shoes that you're in. Yeah. And Genevieve's mom was going through this right now, and she was getting ready to take chemotherapy on top of everything else that's going on. Right. I would likely give her 5 to 10 milligrams right before the chemo went in. Just to interrupt that drug. But I wouldn't give it to her later at night before she takes warfarin or something else with a blood thinner. Right. Definitely wouldn't do that. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? But I would do it before the chemo because we're looking at risk versus harm. Yeah. We look at risk versus harm for a blood thinner for somebody who's had all these different things go wrong. The risk is way too high to give a decent dose of CBD. A small dose, the risk is little to nil. Right. Right. Now. But when it comes before chemotherapy, the harm of chemotherapy is death. Yeah. So, how much of a risk do you take? Now, I wouldn't say, hey, Anne-Marie, my fiance, I wouldn't say, hey, we're going to give you 100 milligrams for this chemo if she was on these other different drugs. Right. But I'd probably give her 10. Just before, like the day before?
The day
No,
of?
like a couple hours before. Because
Okay.
literally what I want is for that CBD to start being active in the gut and start grabbing those digestive enzymes for itself. So when the chemo comes in, it can only grab so many. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it can only metabolize so much and spread throughout the body before the body just kicks it out. You know, so it's and this is sort of a dangerous game, and I don't want anybody that would listen to this to follow these instructions without knowing what they're doing, because some metabolic pathways lead right back to the liver. Let's take Tylenol, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's thinking at all about Tylenol with CBD. When you take CBD, put 50 milligrams under your tongue and throw a couple of Tylenol in your mouth, you're opening up the digestive metabolic pathway back to the liver. It's one thing to have a competition for metabolism for things that leave our body. It's another thing to have a competition to metabolize something that doesn't leave and goes back to the liver and causes toxicity.
Yeah.
So this is why GW Pharma's Epidiolex has all these crazy side effect warnings, and the number one thing being hepatic liver failure, because they gave that stuff in high doses, 400, 600, 1,000 milligrams at a time, to kids who are also taking multiple seizure medications that already are known to harm the liver.
Yeah.
So it's what the Epidiolex package should say is the formulation of this drug causes seizure medications to harm the liver worse than they would anyway. It should not say this product causes hepatic liver damage, because it doesn't.
Right.
It's the pills that are taken with it that do.
I have another question for you. Going along the same hypothetical, if Anne-Marie was going through the stuff that my girlfriend was going through, and like, say during chemo, she just is not hungry at all, like has no appetite, would you suggest THC, like say vaping THC or something, just small doses, to get her hungry? Because that seems to be the only thing that fucking works. No joke.
Without a doubt,
Yeah.
I would have Anne-Marie using THC.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it.
Right. But is there a scary limit? Like if you take too much, something might be affected or something like that? Does it cut off certain receptors and affect other medicines the same way CBD does, or?
THC can interfere with medication, but nowhere near in the way that CBD can. I mean, when you look at it, our bodies have been taking in these THC cultivars for quite some time, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. When we look historically at the different species of the Cannabisaceae plant family, which includes 170 different flowering plants, cannabis only being 4 of those, we look at a situation where it's got 8,000 years of history.
Right.
Of people ingesting cannabis, but we don't have any history of people ingesting cannabis that specifically had CBD in it.
Or like tiny, tiny levels, right? Just like the tiniest levels, yeah.
Exactly. So we just have not seen the THC side effects other than in rapidly speeding up the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be careful with that one. You got to be careful if you got a transplant recently, because THC can interfere with medications for anti-rejection of different transplants. So there are medications that THC can have contraindications with, and it's a long list. But the number one is that it helps to depress the CNS more. That's the biggest side effect of THC. So, you've got that, and it speeds up the heart for a short period of time, and then it depresses the CNS, which would lower the heart rate. So it does mess with blood pressure medications. But when it comes to a situation like what you have going on with your girlfriend, if Anne-Marie was in that position, without a doubt, I would be using THC in small doses to induce her appetite and also to help with pain. And what's a small dose? I have people asking this all the time. Mike, you say small doses, what do you mean? I mean the dose that the person can handle. So you start out small, 5-10 milligrams, maybe the person can handle 25.
Right.
If they can, give it to them. If that's what they want, it's their choice. So the number one answer to your whole question would be, if that's what you choose, yes.
Yeah.
If she said, look, this stuff is helping me eat, I'm not feeling anything negative from it, without a doubt. CBD doesn't promote eating. It actually does the opposite. Where THC promotes hunger, which is why Marinol was created. Your synthetic version of THC. I mean, a lot of people don't realize Marinol's been on the market since 1985 as a Schedule III THC drug.
Yeah, they were giving her Marinol in the hospital every once in a while, and then it just she started not even wanting it. It was like not doing. I don't know. It wasn't effective or something. So she was. Yeah. It
doesn't work continually. Its efficacy is very limited. It can be taken every few days and do what it's supposed to do. But the bottom line of it is we are literally sitting here, 34 years later, having this conversation after the FDA approved Marinol. A synthetic form of THC put in sesame oil that needs to be refrigerated. It is an antiquated medicine that will never do what THC can do.
And there's no entourage effect either. It's just like the synthetic version of this one cannabinoid with nothing else working with it. It's so alien.
So literally, it's good. It's good for the gut, and that's what I found. I've got a prescription of Marinol sitting in my fridge that was prescribed to me, and I was going to use for traveling. Because I needed to have something when I traveled. And I figured, hey, as long as I got the Marinol, it'd be cool. Well, I took one trip with it, and I was like, what? I'm better off with nothing.
Oh, shit.
So it made me shaky. But when you think about it, if you take a THC edible, or you make butter, that's when you've got somebody that's losing weight or needs to eat, one of the best things to do is to throw some butter in a crock pot, throw some cannabis on top of that stuff, put a lid on it, stick it on high for a few hours, put it to medium, stick it on low, let it go for 12 hours, strain that butter with a cheesecloth, and make food with it.
Yeah.
Make snacks with it, and literally a few bites out of something with butter, and the person stops eating because they have no appetite. But then 30 minutes later, suddenly they want to eat everything.
Right.
And it's literally a key to keep food going in during these times.
Have you ever heard of the magical butter machine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's made for that specifically.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting, some of these contraptions that have came out to make these different things. I know the magical butter machine can make like a tincture too as well.
I think so.
And for people that are learning and stuff like that, I think those kinds of devices are interesting and necessary.
Yeah, if you're vegan, you can make. I think you can make MCT butter and stuff like that too. I don't think it has to be actual butter.
Now that's what we use.
Right.
That is Genevieve's literally go-to oil, and you can take solid MCT coconut oil, 62% MCT coconut oil, and dump that stuff into a stainless steel pot on your stovetop. Bring it up to 220 degrees. Take cannabis. No need to decarb it because it's going to decarb when it hits 220 degree heat. You know what I mean? Right. So you take your cannabis and stick it right into that MCT oil, just like you put it into butter, and keep it at about 220 so you don't destroy the terpenes and flavonoids that are within it, and let it go for about 6 hours. Strain it. Now you have an oil that you can just eat straight.
Wow.
You can literally eat a quarter teaspoon of that and spark the appetite, and that works even better because it tastes good. It tastes coconutty.
Right.
And you're not trying to put food into somebody who feels like they're going to vomit. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're just letting them suck on something really quick and giving them a little bit of time, and then they have the ability to eat.
It's funny, like totally aside from this, but what Frenchie was telling me in the last episodes about a resin is a resin is a resin, I bet you could put CBD flower into do the same exact thing and make your own CBD oil that way, probably, right?
We do.
Yeah, there you go.
We do. So literally what I have, as I'm sitting here in my office, it's sort of an interesting office because it's got all kinds of interesting things, everything from the computers I work on, research on, to I'm looking at a little handbag I have, and that little handbag I keep, a few ounces of decent THC flower, and I literally let it get old. And people are like, Mike, why are you letting that stuff get old? That's like turning colors. Well, THCA, of course, is the fresh plant, just like CBDA is with hemp, and as you cure it, you end up with THC or CBD. So the curing process, just letting it dry out, literally gets rid of a lot of that acidic chain, the A off the end. So what happens when you let cannabis just sit for a year and a half, sealed nice, is it goes from THCA to THC and converts over to CBNA. So now I have something that will convert to CBN when I infuse it. So I would keep some off to the side, some old cannabis. So I have some CBN because it's a very relaxing, it's a sleepy time cannabinoid.
Right.
Helps with cancer, helps induce hunger. It does just as much as THC to induce hunger.
That's cool.
And
right.
So I'll literally take some of that. I'll take some fresh THC plant matter, and I'll take a handful of some CBD plant matter. And Genevieve is the kind of kid who really doesn't like CBD. Giving it to her straight, she doesn't do well. But when I add some CBD bud into the mix, it just makes it even better. So I could make that same infusion with the MCT coconut oil with any strain I want to. And what I find works best is putting like 4 or 5 different strains in it.
Wow, that's cool.
Because you're getting a terpene profile that's different from each one.
That's magic butter for real. That's the real magic butter right there.
Yeah.
Mike's magic
People
butter.
sitting here, they'll call me Dr. Mike while I'm making this stuff. It just looks like this mad scientist making this.
That's what I'm thinking. You do sound like a mad scientist, but it's a mad scientist in a genius way.
The bottom line of it is any patient out there that's going to the doctor, they have insurance that's paying that doctor $100, whatever, for that visit. I mean, that doctor is literally their employee, Right. So patients deserve more than 5 or 10 minutes in a visit and 3 minutes of looking at a chart. Patients deserve a doctor that says, hey, look, I've got you on 3 different medications. I don't want to add the 4th because it'll cause these problems. Not, I don't want to add the 4th because you're taking too much already. We don't need to hear that crap as patients. What we need to hear out of doctors, and I'm somebody that consults with doctors.
Yeah.
So any physician or healthcare worker hearing this goes, okay, that's Mike's personality. They're used to it. Because I'll tell them this straight to their face. Take some time. Look at contraindications. And this is why I tell all patients and ask this question right off the bat. I tell them all, read your patient portal. And they'll say, what's that? And I'll ask them, did your doctor give you information on your patient portal? And this is an online system where all of us can sign in and look at our lab reports, look at notes, look at imaging reports. We can double check our doctors this way. And then using the patient portal, what I have found over the years are missed cancer diagnoses, being told I was in remission when the imaging showed positive in multiple places. It goes on and on.
This is on your own patient portal?
On my own this is on me. I've had doctors call me back in for more testing on epilepsy and want to give me new drugs nowadays when they know what I'm already doing based on the fact that my test came in with a few glitches. So then I pull up the test and look at the EEG of my vape, and it's negative. So I'm somebody that has severe refractory epilepsy, which means an EEG in my brain normally looks like, a thunderstorm coming in on the Weather Channel, all these rolling waves.
Right.
Now my EEG negative. It was negative in 2018, 2017, and 2016.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm running 3 years with brain waves that if I was to go into a doctor and they didn't know that I had a traumatic brain injury in 1995 and stuff my head into a roll cage and a racing wreck, they would literally say, no, you don't have epilepsy.
Wow.
By reading the EEG.
When's the last time you had a seizure? Just...
Oh, I had several seizures when I quit the opioids. I mean, after 24 years of use, the withdrawal was brutal. I decided I was going to wean and start cutting doses down. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it all, and I was so sickened by everything. Holding that prescription to Narcan, I was like, "There's no way I'm filling this crap." You know, and then I started looking at the opioids, and I thought about all the doctors over a 24-year period of time. Had to be 15 doctors or more that wrote me prescriptions. Not one ever said, you know, Mike, one prescribed dose of this can kill you. Nobody ever said that. But when I go and research in depth, I find that the 70,000 people a year that die in the U.S. to overdoses pales in comparison to the 130,000 plus per year that die to a prescribed dose of medication they were given.
Yeah.
That is a fact.
That's amazing.
Well researched. That's a number that's in concrete. I stand behind that 1,000%. It's right there and easy to prove. So
it's amazing.
It is intense.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the CBD Source podcast.
This is the people that I'm stumbling on are people who just figured out about CBD and are so hyped about it because it's changing their lives. And those are the people that want to shout it from the rooftops on the internet, on Reddit and, you know, Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. And you're like one of these guys who just somehow, like through Henry back in the day in 2013, found out about this. So you were like one of the first people, the first people I've ever heard of that got in that early into the CBD and started to know that it was something that it had, especially with seizures and stuff like that it could actually change your life. So, before we wrap this up, because I want to do a second episode with you, we're gonna build this up. Maybe in a couple weeks we can get together and have another conversation with me, you, and Genevieve's mom, and tell that whole love story, that cannabis love story that you guys have just magically fallen into, and how your lives have all become like one thing now that's really amazing and beautiful. And you were saying that something about High Times contacted you about it or something? Contacted her?
Yeah, actually, High Times interviewed Anne Marie about almost a month ago. It should literally be hitting the net any time, and they're talking about putting it in a print edition as well. So they basically took the cannabis love story that's on my blog, Mike's Medicines, and read through that as I was responding to High Times coming to me wanting, quote, expert input. You know, I give a lot of responses to media, cannabis media, regarding cannabinoid medicine, how it works on multiple different subjects. And a High Times reporter had quoted me multiple times in different articles, and just reading my email, there's a line on my email that says, read the cannabis love story on the link. Mm-hmm. So he read that and he got really intrigued and came back and said, look, I really want to feature Genevieve's journey and how it all began. So High Times' article is very intense because it's the first time her mom has ever been interviewed or ever gone public in what will be 3 years and not in just a week. You know, we're a week away from the date I came here 3 years ago. Wow. Knocking on the door to find a child seizing.
I don't want to, you know, I'm glad you didn't tell the whole story because I want to make sure we psych everyone up for this, the second episode. I think that's a good teaser for the next time we talk, where we can, you know, have Anne Marie on and really tell the whole love story, because I want to be able to do like an audio version in a way, you know, like like get it out there in audio form so everyone can hear it.
TheCBDGang.com, the official subreddit for fans of the CBD Source podcast. questions. Answers. CBD Gangsters. At Karma. That's sweet. Sweet Karma.
So no wonder you work for the plant now. You know, like how could you not? Like you're basically working for the plant because you're just you can't not when it's helped you that much. You know.
You know, every day I get offers. Hey, Mike, let's brand a CBD product after you. You've got Mike's Medicines blog. Let's make a Mike's Medicines product line. And, you know, I get excited sometimes at those offers and those thoughts. But when it comes down to it, educating patients, educating the consumers in the world, and especially educating our healthcare workers has to be the number one priority. If I can't give away cannabis oil anymore because of Prop 64, and I can't have a compassion program, the best compassion I can give to the world is knowledge.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome, man. More people like you. We need more people like you. So keep doing it. keep doing it and turning other people into you. You know, basically keep cloning yourself through words, you know, through written words and through spoken words. That's the best thing you can do.
Well, you know, I appreciate that. I'm humbled by those words. But of course, there's elements of me that I would not want to clone for other people as well.
Well, just don't write about those elements. No, they're not fit to print stuff. You don't need to throw in. But
well, you know, I kept my vocabulary very PG rated throughout this whole conversation.
Right? You didn't need to. We can swear here. This is like the one explicit CBD podcast that everyone else doesn't have the little E rating. We can swear as much as we want here. So we're geared more towards Gen X, Gen Y, and millennials. We can swear as much as we want. So next time you know that. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to one of those.
Right.
Yeah, because you know there's some issues regarding consumer affairs that I would love to talk about that don't have anything to do with my story or Genevieve's journey or you know how Anne Marie and I got together.
Don't spoil all the secret. We'll get to that on the next episode.
Well, you know she's very willing to talk. We just started on Genevieve's birthday only a couple of days ago. Something called the Carousel Challenge. And literally, you can go to carouselchallenge.com and see the website I put up on it. And it's just this incredible global challenge to go out and ride carousels or take your carousel photos, post them on social media with the hashtag Carousel Challenge. And literally what we're doing is looking to raise funds to not put one carousel here for Genevieve because she loves being on carousels. And hers got moved away out of Santa Barbara a couple of years ago, and she really dreams all night of them. We're up all night with her, looking at carousel videos. So we started this carousel challenge thing, and it really opened the doors for her mom to start talking a little bit more about everything. And you know what I'd like to do is just hand the phone over to her when we do that next show, and let you just talk to Anne Marie and get mom's percent without me. With my input, I mean, I run over people talking. I just talk too much.
Well, that would be great. Yeah, I want to definitely. We'll kind of like start it off, and then we'll pass around the phone like a joint. All right.
Sounds cool. Sounds great.
Very cool. It was so nice talking to you, Mike. It was a really fascinating story. You've been through so much crazy shit, and I'm sure a lot of people from different walks of life can take away things from this conversation, because I mean, with the opioids and the accident and the recovery and the epilepsy, and wow, it's just an amazing journey you've been on, and such a compassionate life you've lived. So I definitely want to talk to you again and again, like make you a regular or something.
I look forward to that. Because
the information you have, yeah, and your blog is really, really good. So anyone who is looking to read some of Mike's writings, mikesmedicines.com, and you can see stories going all the way back to 2017. But really good research. Like, you're really up on what's happening with the research, and you're a mad scientist who's creating your own stuff in your lab and testing it out on friends and people who need it. So, if there's anyone out there that is doing this kind of stuff and thinks you'd also be good for the show, give us a call, 1-833-CBD-GANG. That's 1-833-223-4264. I'm always amazed to stumble on people like you, because it's like, wow, you were such an early adapter and like an early advocate to CBD. And the more people like you out there that we find, the better, because it's like it's just amazing to me, and you're changing the world for the better. So thank you so much, Mike.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch, and we'll do that episode maybe in a week or two, like depending on when you can, when you guys will both be around and have like an hour to kill.
Okay, sounds great. We'll get that figured out.
Awesome, man.
And I look forward to talking again.
All right, thank you so much. All right, peace.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
Hey gang, want to score free CBD? Sign up for Loyal and Save online or on your phone and use it whenever you shop at CBD Source locations. You'll earn points towards free products and other cool merch. Sign up for free at cbdsourcepodcast.com/loyal. You can download the Loyal and Save app on iTunes or Google Play. That's our loyalty app. Call Help Designed It.
Wow, this show is like the most fun thing I do now. I can't believe how much fun I have just talking to people who know their shit back and forth. This guy has had every ailment in the book. It's pretty insane to see what cannabis has done for his life. And this is just scratching the surface as far as what we're going to get into when we talk to his fiance and the entire cannabis love story that his cannabis advocacy kind of made happen. Like, everything in this guy's life is like that Gwyneth Paltrow movie, Sliding Doors, where like if you miss the door by a millisecond, your entire life changes for the worse or the better. It's just one thing after another that leads. I think this is probably most people's lives. When you see it all spelled out to you in one conversation, you really see all these different sliding doors coming into place, and how one career path led to another, led to now his relationship and a future that he would have never expected. It's pretty fucking fantastic. So, Mike, I can't wait to have you back on, man. And I don't know if we're going to get that second episode done before the High Times article drops, or maybe at the same time. We'll see. But the love story that's going to be featured in High Times is going to be one of the next big stories we're going to drop here on CBD Source Podcast. Gang, there is a story that Mike has about how he weaned himself off of opioids and basically got himself out of that wheelchair, and how he now uses CBD and THC to help heroin and opioid addicts wean themselves off of these insane addictions. I'm saving that for another episode because we talked for like 40 minutes about that. We're going to try to find Wufeng Chang, also known as Henry. I think that this podcast is going to do a little 6 degrees of CBD and try to find this guy. Wufeng Chang came to America, practiced some ancient Chinese medicine and acupuncture. He's from Korea. That's all I know about him. But this guy is like the first strand of spider web leading out to a giant, beautiful web of people who have been touched by cannabinoids thanks to his little can't eat it all balls. We're looking for you. If anyone knows how to get in touch with Wufeng Chang, give us a call, 1-833-CBD-GANG. That's 1-833-CBD-GANG. If you want that in number form, it's 1-833-223-4264. Let's find this guy, because in 2013, you changed Mike's life and set him on a path that he had no clue he was going to be going down. And in essence, you've changed all of our lives, because now we're talking to him, and the CBD gang at home is taking in all of this information, and maybe some of you are going to try some of his mad scientist experiments. I didn't even think about the Lyme disease thing. We've got to look into this, because that's pretty damn amazing. Some of the things that he was talking about were mind blowing. It was just kind of truth bombs and bombshells nonstop. So anyway, we're gonna keep in touch with Mike and hopefully do that follow-up episode in the next 2 weeks. Thank you for listening to this entire long episode. I know this is a long one, but man, was it worth it. What fucking stories. These stories were great. Be sure to like us on social media. Check out our website, cbdsourcepodcast.com. That's where you can find out how to subscribe to us. We just found out that if you go to a normal Google search engine and just type CBD Source Podcast into your search bar, you can scroll down and you'll find all of our episodes right there in the search. It's a new function that Google has, so pretty damn cool. You can listen right through your Google. You don't need anything, just Google. Easy. Google CBD Source Podcast and you'll be able to listen. That's as easy as it gets, man. Crazy. You can also listen and subscribe through Apple Podcasts. Might be a little more complicated. If you listen to any podcast on Apple Podcasts, you can get to us right by searching CBD Source Podcast. Just search for that and you'll find us, no problem. There's a lot of ways to find us. I'm just starting to make show notes for each episode. We're always playing catch up here. So show notes coming this week. We're also building out the YouTube page. We're starting that really hard this week. So look forward to videos and well-produced content on our YouTube page. I love audio. For me, this is painting with words. This is talking and storytelling and weaving a narrative is an art form. And I have a visual art background, but when I'm talking to you, gang, this feels like an extension of that. It feels like I'm painting pictures with words and connecting different stories and making full pictures. So I love doing this, and I'm glad you guys are sticking around and really showing love and support for the podcast, helping us grow. So gang, I'll CBD you next Tuesday.
Give the show a call at 1-833-223-4264. That's 1-833-CBD-GANG.
The CBD Source Podcast is written, produced, and hosted by Cole Cheney. Additional voice, camera, and web production by Ryan Weber. Graphic design and artwork by John DiGian Tommaso, Kevin Bierfeld, and Cole Cheney. Marketing by Penny Spinazzola. Special thanks to our resident CBD guru, Akash Patel, and our in-house CBD vape expert, Anthony Maltese, as well as our personal CBD Cannabinoid chef Ryan Weber and our social media maven Casera. Additional thanks to Tasha, Kevin, Liz, Steve, and Ryan for lending your vocal talent. I'm James Lazos. This is my one job on the show, to wrap it up. I'm the wrap-up guy. This is a message to Henry. I feel an abdomen injury coming on. I think I'll be re-injuring my abs every day, just before 420 if you want to stop by. And trust me, I can eat it all. Want to be a guest on the show? Call us at 833-CBD-GANG. Again, that's 833-CBD-GANG, and leave a message with your contact information and we'll get back to you right away. Visit us on cbdsourcepodcast.com for all the links to your social media. Be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next week.
All information in this podcast or its related social media pages and interactions are for informational purposes only. The CBD Source Podcast does not offer medical advice. Its host, Cole Cheney, is not a medical professional. His experiences with cannabidiol and other cannabinoids are his own and may not affect you the same way. Everybody's endocannabinoid system is different. The statements made regarding CBD products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The efficacy of these products and the testimonials made have not been confirmed by FDA-approved research. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. All information presented here is not meant as a substitute for or alternative to information from healthcare practitioners. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product. The Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act requires this notice.
Thank you for listening to the CBD Source Podcast. This is how we CBDo's it.
The Bristling.
You thinking of doing that one-to-one CBD and THC? Get yourself a medical marijuana card for one, go to a dispensary and pick up that THC, then go down to a CBD source store, We've got them listed on our website, cbdsourcecenter.com, and pick yourself up some CBD, pair those two together, and you'll have a nice, beautiful entourage effect. We've got stores in Middletown, Geneseo, New Paltz, Syracuse, Troy, Albany, and Chatham, New York, and a store in Pittston, PA. So somewhere nearby you is a CBD Source store selling all the great CBD products. Stop in and tell them CBD Source Podcast sent you. You're going to buy CBD anyway. Why not earn points back that you can use to buy or get free CBD? Download the Loyal and Save app. You can get to it directly through our site, cbdsourcepodcast.com/loyal. You'll be able to sign up and start saving money on CBD today. The more CBD you're buying, the more points you're getting, so it just makes sense. Why buy CBD and not get points? Eventually, we're going to have some CBD Source Podcast swag and shit like that you can buy through the app with points right through our swag shop. So we're not there yet. We will soon have that available. So might as well start generating some points now. So when we do have some cool CBD Source Podcast swag, you'll be able to be the first to be wearing our shit. Check out our Reddit page, thecbdgang.com. We'll take you right there and post something. If you haven't checked out our Instagram, it's CBD Source Podcast on Instagram. This morning, I'm going to be uploading a photo of me and my chick riding a carousel. It's from a couple years ago at Dorney Park. Went there for a summer vacation trip. Hashtag carousel challenge. I challenge all of you to post your pictures of you on a carousel with the hashtag carousel challenge and spread the love for autistic kids who love carousels. They want to see pictures of people having fun on carousels, and hopefully we can raise some money and get carousels into towns where people who want carousels can have those carousels. I think that's the premise. We'll talk more about it once we get Mike back on the show and talk to Anne-Marie and see what this whole thing is all about. This cannabis love story. All right, gang. Now I'm going to go take some CBD and sleep. Thank you guys for listening to the whole thing. This is the very, 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 very fucking end. And I'm kind of delirious. So thank you for sticking it out. All right, guys. Have a good week. Peace. So, gang, I'll be seeing you. I fucked it up again.